And this is the All Show. I'm John Rawl. Welcome back to the All Southern program. And we're joined each Tuesday by our barrister. But here on the Yall Show, we're going to give him a little bit of a change this week. He's been our barrister of Bodacious Barbecue, Big 12 football, and all things important to all of us for our life purposes. He could really weigh in on just about everything. So, barrister, if you don't mind, I'm going to throw you a curveball, Matt Heermans. Are you ready to catch this curveball?
I'm up to the batter's box, and I'm ready for it. Let's do it.
You're our new barrister of college baseball.
Fantastic. That means I get to watch even more than I already do, which I can tell my wife I have an excuse now.
Yes. Well, I know you've got other things that you have to do in your life. However, it is your constitutional duty now to keep up with everything NCAA baseball, at least all the way till we get to the middle of June when the College World Series takes place in Omaha. So we're going to be touching base with you, pun intended, on college baseball. We're also going to get Matt Heermans in the next segment to go back to his other duty of being our barbecue barrister. So you don't mind the double play, do you?
I prefer to call it a twin killing,
Okay.
and I will. I'm happy to, I guess, go from second to first.
Well, that's the kind of attitude. You're our little slugger, I tell you what. Matt, we're going to have you talk barbecue. Before we do that, and I'm going to debut right now, just a drum roll, please, there in the background. I don't think drum rolls are that common in college baseball, but let's debut your new graphic here on our Y'all TV broadcasts for our baseball barrister. Are you ready for this, everybody? Here it goes. Push the button, and voila, there it is. And there's even more stuff coming next week. So now that the fancy stuff's out of the way, we've just wrapped up week 2 of college baseball. What do you think? What's going on so far? There was a huge series between Florida and Miami this past weekend, but just your thoughts now that we're now heading to week number 3 in college baseball.
Yeah, we haven't got into conference play necessarily yet, but it's already fun. You've got SEC baseball is fantastic. SEC is not just a football league. You usually have a couple teams in the basketball division there that play really well, but the SEC is a top-notch baseball league. If not the best, then certainly right there, and I would say this year the best. So you've had some interesting storylines already in the SEC. You've got Florida, kind of a perennial baseball power, but you would call it an off year last year. You would call them a very talented team, but just couldn't quite get it all together to be the team that you thought they would last year. But a lot of folks thought, including myself, that this would be the year to kind of get it together, and boy, the Gators have come out swinging. Miami was a top 10 ranked team. They swept Miami, which is
in Coral Gables.
That's right. Tough task to do that, not only on the road, but at Miami. It's just tough. I mean, in college baseball, you play sometimes you play 4-game series, but a lot of times you play 3-game series. And if you can just win the series, that's what the name of the game is, right? That's, if anybody doesn't follow college baseball, you play a 3-game series. If you go 2-1, that's a win. That's great. That's not going to hurt anything. That's what you want to do. But you sweep them, especially a top 10 team like Miami, which I think is going to be a good baseball team. That's a pretty dominant performance there. And then on the other side, on the West, you got Ole Miss, who is kind of a top-notch baseball program, but a team last year that maybe a little bit surprising, got closer to the College World Series than most people expected, but had an up-and-down year, maybe on the bubble there for a little while. This year they've come out behind the flowing, permed Kenny Powers locks of Cale Baker, who, I can say this as, somebody who's a good-sized gentleman myself. That's a lot of dude shoved into a baseball uniform.
And I haven't brought this up because the opportunity has not presented itself, but thanks that you're bringing up Kenny Powers and his flowing locks. Matt Heermans has a pretty good set of hair this day. I've seen you kind of let things loose here in 2020.
Well, it's time for a haircut, put it that way. Once the wife starts telling you look like Mike Gundy, it's time to get a haircut.
Okay.
But
for those college baseball fans who don't know who Mike Gundy is, he's the coach of an Oklahoma State football team.
That's right. Well, you know what? Let's just call it Kale Baker here at this point. There you go. We'll keep it on in the SEC and keep it baseball. So Ole Miss has started off very strong, beat Louisville, which is the number one team at the time, won that series. And they came out and just pounded Xavier, which is not, Xavier's not going to be in the College World Series, but baseball's a wild sport. When you can sweep somebody as thoroughly as they did, it's always a good sign. So SEC is going to be a very strong baseball league, but you've already got a couple storylines. You got Tennessee in the East. I'll mention them really quickly.
Look, before we go to the Vols, let me get your take on a couple of freshmen for Mike Bianco and the Diamond Sharks in Oxford. He's got two football players who are doing double duty, kind of like what you do here on the Y'all Show. And I know one's the quarterback, Plumlee, I think's his name, and then the running back also is on the Mississippi baseball team. And both of those guys got to play, I think, this weekend. One of them even got a hit after, I think, 0-7 at the plate, the running back.
Yeah, they wore Jaron Ely, I want to pronounce his first name correctly, but Ealy. He's the tailback for the football team. And then, of course, Plumlee would be the quarterback. Well, if anybody followed the Rebels last year, it feels like there was a different quarterback every week. But John Reese Plumlee is a heck of a baseball player as well. And both of these guys are just bring absolutely elite speed to the outfield. So John Reese Plumlee is he's a freshman, true freshman, and he plays the outfield, 6 foot, 192. Incredible speed there. Everybody saw it. Maybe he needs to work on the accuracy for the football team over the summer. But heck of an athlete. There's no doubt about that. Heck of an athlete. Same thing goes for Ely as well. So you got a couple guys. Sometimes it's Jerry, and I wanted to say Jerron, but I want to make sure I got it right. He's an outfielder as well. So you got two guys that will probably work themselves into a lineup, and that's the great thing about college baseball as well. Coach Bianco will have some different tools to move out there. So you're playing a team that hits a lot of deep balls, hits a lot of balls, maybe shallow, call them bloopers into the outfield. You can put some speed out there. You can put Ely out there. You can put Plumlee out there. Guys that can really go get the baseball. So it's a lot of strategy. It's not like you've got a guaranteed lineup in SEC baseball every week, but you got guys like that, incredible athletes out in the outfield. You can really cover a lot of ground, and there's just you think speed, you think football. Baseball is a sport that you can really use your speed too, not just in the outfield, which is huge, but get a guy on base, like Ely did. He wore a pitch. You get a guy like that on base, and if they know how to run, you can really steal bases and put a lot of pressure on a pitcher, and it changes the whole game. So talented team, very, very young team for Ole Miss, but they've started strong.
Hey, and I didn't want to cut you off. I know you wanted to talk about a college baseball power in UT, and it's not the traditional UT we're talking about out of Austin. It's out of Knoxville. And sure, that first weekend, the Leathernecks of Western Illinois came into Rocky Top, and UT swept that series there in Knoxville. But what was impressive, last weekend, the Round Rock Classic was held just outside of Austin, speaking of Austin. And the Tennessee Vols went there, and they beat teams like Texas Tech as well as Houston. They even beat the Stanford Indian Cardinals in that game, in that series.
That's right. It was a pretty cool little weekend matchup. Tennessee had a little bit of press coming into the season. A lot of folks thought that if they could get some bats together, in other words, they get some offense going, that this Tennessee Volunteer team had the potential to be a tournament type team, maybe even better, based on the pitching. They're sitting, defense wide or bullpen wide. They're sitting at 1.71 so far this year, which is an ERA overall, which is pretty amazing. So, that's going to change. They're going to get in the meat of the SEC lineup, but the pitching was not going to be an issue for Tennessee. It's going to be the offense, and so far they've had enough. So that's a program, again, you think UT baseball, you think of a dozen national championships in Austin. Hurts to say that, but no, UT, the Tennessee Volunteers look like they have a team that maybe could surprise some folks. They beat a Texas Tech team that was had I think there's like 5 different ranking sites that do college baseball rankings, but they were getting number 1 votes. I think two out of the 5 had them at number 1, and the lowest they were at is 3. So that's a good team. That was a heck of a win for the Volunteers, and yeah, a team to keep an eye on out of the SEC East, not one you typically think about.
And with that win there in Round Rock, the Vols moving up to number 24 in the latest D1 baseball poll. And great job there. Florida is your number 1 team now in college baseball after that big series win against the Miami Hurricanes this past weekend. And then Vanderbilt checks in at number 2, a nice rebound after they did not do so well in the desert in opening week of college baseball. Louisville's at 3, Georgia 4, and those Red Raiders, which lost to Tennessee, check in at number 5 in the latest top 25. Moving away from the SEC, Barrister, I want to get your take on what the Big 12 has in store. I know we're just kind of getting started, but other than Texas Tech, a team that's been very good in baseball, who else should we be on the lookout for in the Big 12 this year?
Yeah. So Texas Tech, clearly the cream of the crop over there, at least at this point. Well, put it this way. Most people think that is the way it's going to pan out. Very talented program there in Lubbock, pitching probably in the argument for the best overall bullpen in the country. You could probably throw a couple other ones in there, but certainly they're right there. You got Baylor. Also a team that has kind of been historically a good baseball program, but had a few down years. They've come back, made the tournament last year. You got Oklahoma State, who, again, advanced to the Super Regionals last year, looked to be strong this year. Oklahoma State had a pretty bad loss early in the season. I want to say one of these programs, I can't even remember the name. I'm not going to cheat and look it up, but pretty bad loss. It is baseball, though. These things do happen. Oklahoma State is going to have a fine baseball team and an upgraded facility up there in Stillwater that's pretty impressive. West Virginia is a team to keep an eye on as well. They're typically one that hangs around not necessarily the top 25, but the tournament type team. Mm-hmm. Texas is an interesting team to look at. TCU is another team that you would expect to be a baseball powerhouse in and out, year in and year out, and they usually are. Last year, down year for TCU. Somehow, miraculously and inexplicably made the tournament and promptly left. But TCU is a team that's got an incredible, again, this is one of the teams, like Texas Tech, one of the best bullpens and some of the best pitching in the country this year. I expect them to be a top 25 team by the end of the year. Texas is a team that, again, we've kind of hinted at earlier, talking about different UTs. That's a team with an incredible history. And you think of the University of Texas, if you're a college baseball fan, you think of, perennial powerhouse. It hasn't been that way necessarily. Last year, yes, that was a good Texas team. This year, but the year before that, it has not been a consistent. You think of Augie Garrido as the coach for a very long time at the University of Texas. And
Augie Garrido.
The late, correct. Had some great teams, won national championships. Very consistent too. Texas just has not been consistent. They've had some talent. They've had the Clemens boys come through, and they were taken highly. But just a team that you have to watch. You don't really know what they're going to do at any given year. So, like I say, finished 7-16 in the Big 12 last year. The year before that, much better. Made the tournament. But this year, they're just a question mark. Oklahoma is usually hanging around the 500 level in the Big 12. So the top teams are going to be Texas Tech, Baylor, Oklahoma State, and TCU. West Virginia is going to be right there, I imagine. Oklahoma will probably hang around somewhere in the conversation. And Texas is a big, fat, huge question mark. Really have no idea.
And as we need to wrap up our baseball talk with you, Matt Heermans, before we move over to what's going on with the grilling life that you lead, real quick, I'm going to put you on the clock, kind of like an XFL clock. So you have the guy running out on the field with the red hat here. I'm going to put the ball down real quick. You got 20 seconds. ACC, your thoughts on the Atlantic Coast Conference from a college baseball standpoint?
Well, Miami is a – I still think is going – I hesitate. They just got absolutely smoked by Florida. But, I still think Miami is going to be a very good baseball team. Florida State, I think, is also – this will be the first season without Mike Martin, which, obviously anybody who follows college baseball, the absolute legend. I don't think there's anybody. I've never heard of anybody who didn't think he was a heck of a guy and a
Took
great
him to
coach.
Omaha in his final year.
Yeah, a team that never should have gotten there too, which is, again, talk about a swan song for a great guy. That team maybe shouldn't have made the tournament, but once they did, they did. So Florida State is going to be a good baseball team. I don't know how good, but they're going to be good. They're going to play Texas Tech here in a few weeks.
Oh, really?
And that's going to be, it'll be a heck of a matchup. But I think Miami still is going to be there. Duke, I think, is going to field a good baseball team. The ACC is fairly top heavy. You're going to Clemson certainly has some history recently as well, fielding good baseball teams, certainly last year, and they're sitting at 7-0 right now. So, but I think Florida State, Louisville, clearly we've already kind of touched on them. They're sitting at 4-3, but that's a heck of a baseball club. They're missing two of their better players, both top 20 draft picks probably. So once they get healthy, it's going to be Louisville. It's going to be Miami still, and I think after that you're talking Florida State somewhere in Duke. That's probably the hierarchy.
All right, Matt Heermans, we're going to talk more college baseball with you again as we walk our way toward Omaha. And I'm going to ask you next week to go beyond the power conferences of the South and give us a quick take on the CUSA, what you expect out of that league, the Sun Belt, and even some of these other conferences that have produced national champions, like the Big South Conference, for goodness sake, in Coastal Carolina a couple of years ago. So we'll get your take on all that as we move on to next week. And on the Y'all Show, as we walk our way through the week, heading into the weekend, we're going to break down some of these series based on the conferences. For example, ACC will have all that breakdown on Wednesday's Y'all Show and the SEC on Thursday's Y'all Show. Hang on where you are. We're going to keep going with Matt Heermans on the other side of this timeout. We're going to get him to put on his barrister hat, and he's going to talk about the barrister of Bodacious Barbecue. And that conversation is coming up when the Y'all Show continues.